Ready.
This week, hockey night in the basement.
Ready. Go.
Tabletop hockey is alive and well. On the Sports Journal, next.
You're watching Canada's News Network. This is CBC News World.
This week, table for two.
Ready. Go. Yes!
It's still our game, even if it's in the basement. A fresh start.
You know, I'm passing up something that I've dreamed I wanted to do all my life.
This Blue Jay prospect has graduated to the college game.
Chris Winkie, after a pro baseball career, said he wanted to play football for Bobby Bell.
And keeping skaters on the edge. Hi there, I'm Tom Harrington, and this is the Sports Journal. Well, the rush is on. Holiday shoppers looking for that perfect gift, of course, at the last minute. Well, we have an idea for you. It is uniquely Canadian, guaranteed to arouse passions in all who use it. In fact, as the Sports Journal's Terry Walker reports, this remarkable piece of Canadiana can become an obsession, like the game it emulates.
Ready. Ready. Go.
Once a week, Neil Whiteley and the boys get together for a little tabletop hockey, reliving childhood days from a simpler time in a league of their own.
And as a kid, I would get together with my buddies from the neighborhood, and we would just play for hours. We had leagues, and we had tournaments, and we'd bring the table out to the front porch, even in the summertime, and play all year round. Ready.
Ready. Go.
Most people remember the games of their youth, and many recall with great fondness tabletop hockey. And some of those people are doing their very best to keep alive a Canadian tradition that goes back more than 60 years.
This is one of the original Munro games. It's dated from 1953.
Broadcaster and inventor Peter Reynolds is talking about the first tabletop hockey game ever invented, first manufactured by Don Munro, a Canadian, in 1932. When two of Reynolds' nephews visited him about 6 years ago, their fascination with the game gave him an idea.
I think they were there for a week, and they played it constantly. Argued over it, fought over it. I had to referee some of the games. So I thought this game still has tremendous play value.
Like the original, Reynolds' game is mostly wood, starts with a pinball action, and has a sloped surface to keep the ball moving. There are just two controls at each end, one for your goalie and one for all of your forwards and defensemen.
Actually, when it does that, that puts the ball out of play. If you can grab it.
The stationary players are wooden pegs, one team green, the other red.
The reason is that those are the colors that Munro had in his basement. So that's the only paint he had. The first games, by the way, sold for $5.
That's considerably less than the $225 Reynolds charges for his replicas, but for him, the money is secondary.
It's a great piece of nostalgia, and it's part of my own personal history, because I had one in Hamilton as a boy, as did seemed every boy in Canada during the Second World War. And so it's a great conversation piece. It's also a great piece of Canadian history.
Like Monopoly, the original Munro game was a Depression-era toy. It stayed in production for 22 years, but its #1 strength led to the company's downfall.
They were indestructible. In fact, that was the problem, you see, that Munro had. That once everyone had one, that was it. And they couldn't sell anymore.
But that was just the beginning of the tabletop hockey story.
The range of these games runs from 1954 to 1960.
A collector, historian, and dealer of the games, Rob Raven is an authority on tabletop hockey. Although he's made as much as $350 for a single game, they usually go for between $150 and $175, depending on such things as the condition of the board and whether or not it still has its original box.
In often cases, it's not the kid that wants it, it's the father buying it to regain some of the memories he had, because then you always hear Cinderella stories. That's the game, honey. That's the one I had when I was a kid. I've had over probably very close to 100 games at one point. What I like about these particular hockey games is the fact that we're all NHL endorsed, and they all utilize silkscreen graphics on the side. Here's a hockey game that came out in 1961. It utilized the Stanley Cup, and it came with 2 of the wood pucks. It also was a little bit more jazzed up compared to other games, and it was introduced with plexiglass that ran for a couple of years. This particular hockey game was produced by Gotham Press Steel. The model is called G200, and the box is dated 1950. Players that were utilized were 3-dimensional tin players. This is one of my favorite hockey games. It's considered a landmark game to me because it was invented by the Swedes in 1939 and was brought into Canada in the early 50s. And the Swedes invented the slot pattern as far as utilizing men moving up and down the slots.
The Swedes, it seems, are as big on tabletop hockey as are the Canadians.
Yeah, it's a Canadian story, but there's other stories to be told from other countries. And as much as I figure I've learned as much as I can, there's games that show up and you say, where'd that one come from? I've never seen that one before. And you say, well, and you're trying to figure out who made it and when it came out. And
this is Doug Harvey, all-star defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. And this is his son, also Doug Jr., 10 years old and an upcoming member of the Junior Hockey League. What are they doing? Well, let's have a look. It's a toy hockey game, complete with
the 50s and 60s were a glorious time for tabletop.
Who's winning right now, Doug? Tonight's a bad night for me. He's beating me. What about you, Doug Jr.? You like the game?
Gee, it's swell.
The games had annual improvements, modifications, extra touches. But after that, Raven says, the ideas dried up, with the exception of a fundamental change he didn't really appreciate.
Starting around 1971, basically everything changed. The players became all plastic. They minimized the amount of tin they put into games. And today, basically most games that you can buy out in the market today are one molded piece of plastic.
You'll still find a few table hockey games in major toy stores, but more and more, the modern generation looks to modern diversions.
Where's the hockey one, though?
Video games that move youngsters away from mechanically operated games and into the era of electronics.
Oh, no, they want the live effects. They want that oof, bang, and the whistles blowing, and the crowd's cheering, and they love it. Just love it.
Montreal at Toronto.
What we used to know as table hockey and what have you, now is all on video.
Way for boys to play, and now there's new ways for boys to play. I've got a gang in my basement almost every night, fighting over the controls. Actually, we have two playing on the computer and 2 in the video games.
Tonight, I leapt over the boards, and suddenly, it all became clear. Now,
tabletop hockey still has its place in Canadian culture.
And I will go upstairs. Next.
But back at Neil Whiteley's place, tradition marches on.
Ready.
And not just on any old board, this 5-foot-long American-made game has been called the Rolls-Royce of tabletop hockey. Plexiglass surface and rods, Teflon and rubber pucks, nets made to scale, and 3 extra slots allowing goalies to move out and cut down the angle. The cost, including lights and leg stands, about $1,000 Canadian.
Yes!
And this is a very high-quality board. Try telling a billiard player that it's just a board game, you know. This game would probably, it has the craftsmanship and the expense of some billiard games, you know.
Whiteley takes the game more seriously than most people, competing in international tournaments where he's ranked 15th in the world.
Well, when you get into a ranked tournament, there's a lot of pressure because there's a lot at stake, mostly pride.
But even in their local league, things can get tense.
Nice goal. Nope, after the buzzer.
I think that's a goal.
Tomorrow it may be a goal.
It may not, but
Yesterday it
to me,
may have been a goal, but today it is not a goal.
That's a good call by the referee, and I think we should just go with that.
Start the period.
As usual, I get the raw end of the stick.
It is a recreational activity, but we wouldn't do it to the extent that we do if we didn't enjoy the competitive aspect of it. So, first and foremost, it's a game and it's fun.
For the Sports Journal, I'm Terry Walker in Toronto.